would not have thought to join the debate community, so I owe him a lot. Then that brings me to my second coach, who was Marcus Walton. He encountered during my time in high school great help and commitment to this activity. I would newly born. I owe him a lot for coming to and college prep, who after ending their season didn't stop and then went full force into prepping McClatchy and ensuring that that McClatchy did well at the Tournament of Champions. And the final group I'd like to thank are all of the debaters at CK McClatchy, past and present. You all want things. Maybe it would be. I'm just thinking you guys like some. I seriously have we're not if you why was you gonna be like no, I just don't need this joke of a panel right here. This is awesome. Me and Arjun, we were outside. He thought I trolled him. I said they brought a projector out. He's like, man. Oh, Arjun's so fucking ready for this. Just testing, you know.
Well, that was your entrance music, Suo. That's you and Buck.
That's
supposed to entrance music.
Suo's gonna sit right there.
Yeah, I'm obviously sitting here, just like the entire show.
Let me ask you. Nate Sawyer has done this before. Let me ask you this. Okay, constructive. Are you serious? I thought it was much harder. Let's do constructives. I'm good with you. Okay, continue. You sure, bro? I was in the audience. I'll go with Natalie on this one.
Maybe like Andrea. Maybe over so you can see him.
Sorry, I know that.
Is this camera going to be
That's good. Yeah, that's thanks. Did someone in the audience have a spare timer?
Oh, we have an extra.
Yeah, oh, GBN has it.
Hey, Gonzaga. I got your back.
I don't want to.
Apparently. It doesn't restart.
Just tap
Okay, and then the other thing is, do you know if you can change the angle of it? Because the audience isn't going to be able to see what they're projecting, which I think is probably something they'll want to see. And then it's like,
so, in the camera are both me and the.
Yeah, look, if you just tilt it up a little, I got both him and the screen pretty close. Perfect.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's kind of washed out because of the light and everything.
Well,
so if you would describe it a little during the one.
Yeah, can we get someone to dim the lights?
I tried asking that, though apparently there's no light switch, it's like controlled by a key, so I think it's good. I think it would be fine.
The audience can see
I mean,
everything.
that's pretty
Totally
clear,
fine.
right?
Okay.
Clear?
Yeah, no, it's totally viewable from the back of the room. The one thing I'm really worried, the hotel staff is the one that controls all the light stuff. It's like a central control
Oh
system.
yeah, very confident.
Don't worry about the light.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Hilton? The owner's in the office watching. I was like, oh shit.
Okay, our screen's good though, so yeah, if it's kind of get it, you'll see some movement.
That's fine.
Alright, let's get started.
Wow.
Oh yeah, you authoritative.
What? Hey.
Oh, Bosu's like, I thought they were announcing me. Bosu was like, I thought I was gonna. Am I not?
So I guess I'll start out by thanking everyone who's helped get John and myself here. Like, being part of the CK McClatchy debate team has been probably the best experience of my life. Despite having no funding from our school or school district, CKM's small but dedicated group of debaters and coaches has managed to achieve what 4 years ago none of us would have dreamt possible. While debating with John, CKM is while I've been debating with John, CKM has seen tremendous victories that would not have been possible if it weren't for a partner from sophomore junior year, Cristobal Mencius. He's no longer with us in the debate community. But
he is alive.
but he is alive. And the two of us saw lots of fun rounds, and I really enjoyed debating with him. And I'd also like to give a shout out to ex-CK McClatchy debater Jack Gugino, who, while on and off the debate team, has been one of the most beneficial coaches that I've ever had, cutting more cards than seems humanly possible and taking time out of his day, out of his schedule of full college classes to judge me and John in practice debates and participate in those practice debates. Without him, it's doubtful that John and I would be here. And actually, finally, I'd like to thank my debate partner, John Spurlock. Through our ups and downs this year, John, you helped me make my senior year one of the most enjoyable years I've had, and debating with you has probably taught me more about debate than I've ever learned in a period of time. So I guess this has been very long-winded, but I think what I've gotten out of my last 4 years is that CK McClatchy is not a team, it's a community, and I think that's important.
That's awesome. We don't have time for Diablo 3.
StarCraft 2. Okay, is everyone ready? Contention 1 is equal or better. In 1987, the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority's Orange Line train was destroyed. The original Orange Line was service to the town of Roxbury, providing them with a link to their homes into the downtown of Boston. Immediately, the Department of Transportation relocated the Orange Line to a location that better served suburban areas. Roxbury was devastated. The only method of transportation for many Roxbury residents had been obliterated. The Department of Transportation told the state of Massachusetts that it had an obligation to immediately replace the Orange Line with a replacement service equal or better to the previous service. 15 years later, they instituted a single bus route. This people of Roxbury have become spatially isolated, and many of them have lost their only connection to Boston. To this day, the debate continues on whether or not the promise of equal or better was fulfilled. This story has been brought to national attention by Christopher Carter. In addition to writing his master's thesis on the Roxbury transportation issue, he directed and shot a documentary titled Equal or Better to allow the people of Roxbury to speak to a national audience about their experience of transportation justice, an experience that is a microcosm of a larger nationwide struggle.
It remains a bitter taste in the heart and minds of people in Roxbury.
The issue is a transit equity issue because you notice that the communities where people are of color are the neighborhoods where it's buses.
Questions of equity in public transportation are a national issue. It was at the core of the civil rights movement. The separate but equal doctrine came from a court case about railroad passengers. The Montgomery bus boycotts put Dr. Martin Luther King in the national spotlight.
It's the idea that everybody deserves to have equal access to transit, but more so that communities and people who don't have access to cars have a greater need and therefore should be the priority for public transportation systems. Environmental justice is looking at the built physical and social environment, and there were these principles: poor people ride the bus, wealthy people ride commuters on the metro rail kind of thing, and the subsidies were unfair, they were bleeding one system to fund the other.
In Los Angeles, the bus riders union sued the transit authority for raising bus fares while cutting service in order to finance a new rail line to wealthier neighborhoods. 20 years earlier, in Boston, residents, community leaders, and politicians began the debate over what equal or better looked like on one of the oldest streets in the nation.
This is not an accident, nor is it a coincidence. There is a planning process that goes into every transportation decision, and this decision planning process is highly flawed. Bullard and 4. Transportation systems do not spring out of thin air. They are planned, and in many cases planned poorly when it comes to people of color. Conscious debate decision determine the location of bus stops and train stations. These transportation decisions shape the United States metropolitan areas, and the same transportation policies have been subsidized. Racial, economic, and environmental inequalities evidenced by the segregated spatial layout of our cities and suburbs. It is not a chance that millions of Americans have been socially isolated and relegated to deteriorating central cities. Transportation apartheid has been created, and transportation equity issues will not go away if we refuse to talk about them. We cannot ignore the issues that really matter by drafting a race-neutral politics bulletin. 4. Race inequality issues routinely get left out of national attention. Dialogue has been attacked as an afterthought. Discussion take place in Western America was a race-neutral nation. Not talking about racism and planning would take the problem go away. We need to shape their biases and stereotypes of low-income people of color to make sure that there is a fair and equitable movement. And the law is not enough. There is no one-size-fits-all policy to solve all of the harms in the status quo. Bulletin 4. Some groups have taken legal action to accomplish their goals, but legal action is not a substitute for having a well-organized, well-disciplined, well-informed populace. Transformation of racism is difficult to eliminate. There is no cookie-cutter formula for expanding discrimination. Honest, policy, passionate, and committed, and grassroots movements for organizing the broad-based principle for the environmental justice and civil rights movement is all the foundation of transportation equity movement. And contention 2 is the process of planning with the people, with the struggle of the people of Roxbury in mind. John and I advocate for an increase in participation of people of color and low-income people in the planning of transportation infrastructure investment, and bringing the voices of underrepresented groups into the planning process is necessary, and a national strategy is key. Bullard and 4. Race still matters in the United States. Running form it solves nothing. Addressing equity issues and explicit process in transportation makes little sense when white men and women in suits are talking about each other to solve issues of transportation problems. Or transportation planning is less important and solely to the plans of urban planners, and many of those who drive cars and tell them to have no public transit and have a real transportation experience with poor people and people of color. Transport to have experiences should make it there's real power sharing of people of color and underrepresented group and climate and change in people and possible. There needs to be a national strategy to disseminate transportation policy message, make sure our voices are heard loud and clear, and process comes before product. The only way to have better politics is to bring underrepresented groups into transportation planning. Barton Randy 8. A strong emphasis on recognizing the fundamental right of the poor and partisanship and different impact on the space, and the voices of the poor must be heard. Experts through the openness and participation of policy make it their traditional interest in transportation planning. Investment of the poorest people in transportation investment. It shows that the participation must be contracted to being full participating in transportation plan. Those who are empowers and can lead to workable solution. Low-income people have demonstrated the ability to say their interests. Readable conference and led to the success of your high the normals and many communities had to see insincere consultations about merely legitimizing unfair actions that harm the community. Hearing the voices of the poor requires a proactive effort. Organization that champion the interests of the poor and policy based have myth transportation issues that affect low-income people the most. It's the voice of the people of the poor that must be heard in transportation decision makers. Will be put on board receptive to that consultation. The main voices tend to be heard by the government on transportation issues are well organized, well lobby the trucking industry, the motor vehicle industry, the oil industry, and the construction industry. Political process and political participation must be essential in the balance of the efforts of the market and government failures. The hearing alternative voices can help overcome the widespread view of the transportation problems and urban transportation decision. Most politicians and planners transportation engineers have little personal experience of using public transportation, and this is particularly acute in cities where there's a strong polarization between the rich and the poor. And social justice and equity must be the highest priority for transportation planning. Kumar 9. Technical rationalities become detached from societal needs, particularly for the urban poor. Moral principles such as equity and social justice must remain at the heart of transportation planning, practice, and education. Transportation planning is integral. The significance of transportation planning could not be overlooked because in order to make every trip affordable, someone must do a good job at transportation planning. Most of the efforts in transportation planning are scientific or textual, instrumental rationality. Thinking of planning must be implementing planning projects through instrumental reason is acceptable, provided it does not become an end in itself. Transportation planners are well known for their technical prowess. Our scientization of transportation planning has led to achieving the ends of technical rationality of transportation practitioners who believe that moral goods such as transportation equity are mere social irritants. Equity and social justice have become the nerve center of transportation planning and practice and education. Improving one or two intersections could never achieve these moral ends. The discussions like these should have been the center of the topic.
Should we pause the timer?
No, that's all right.
You sure?
Yeah. We can just stop the speech.
I guess I have a few questions first. Why should the judges vote affirmative?
It's very important to bring the voices of low-income people and people of color into the planning process that goes into creating transportation infrastructure.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so then I guess my secondary question to that is, what is the internal link, or rather the intrinsicness, between the judges voting AF at the end of the round and what you just described?
The second to last card I read is very good on this, and it indicates that in the past, bringing people of color and low-income people into the planning process has
Wait,
been effective.
Hang on, Keenan, how did you and John bring those people into the planning
Through
process?
our documentary,
Wait, hang on. So I just want to double check. Your argument is that you fixed these structural problems of the status quo by playing that video.
We've not fixed these structural
but
problems
you've aided in
yet.
the challenge to it?
We say that our advocacy of bringing in low-income people and people of color into transportation policy needs to be affirmed on a wider scale so that
Okay,
these problems
where
can
else
be
should it be
addressed.
affirmed, I guess? Because in the video I saw these different things and I wrote them down. So it cited the Montgomery bus boycotts. I think that's a pretty good empirical example of what the AF would look like. Is that correct?
Well,
It also showed a
wouldn't
bunch of people
necessarily-
picketing and protesting buses, etc.
It
As well as
more-
indicating we
that-
could get involved with residents,
Just to
community,
be
as well as
clear, that's
politicians.
not what the AF would look
Oh,
like.
sure, of
That's
course.
to sort of provide uniqueness for why this is a critical discussion.
Okay,
If that
I
makes
definitely
sense.
agree with you, but like I guess so. What about reading the 1AC and playing that video changed anything? I guess is my question, because that seems to be your internal link into why the judges should vote.
Endorsing our advocacy will change something.
How?
If we bring in
How, Keenan?
Okay, so if we bring in the voices of low-income people
Right.
and people,
We're still getting I agree with your end goal. I agree with you that the way to get to that end goal is to bring in these types of people into the transportation planning process. My question then is, how did the 1AC as a whole, including the video, draw an internal link or a connection between that action itself and what we are isolating as problems with the status
To
quo?
make a bit of an analogy that
sure.
I think might clear this up is, if the room was a room full of transportation planners, then we have literally brought the voices into the transportation planning
Oh no,
discussion.
that makes a ton of sense, except this is a room of debaters.
Right, so our argument
Hang on, John, that seems
Yeah.
very, very important for your affirmative's ability to solve, quote unquote, but if we're all debaters, how did that change anything? Because you didn't really integrate anybody into the transportation process because none of us have control of it.
that's why it's important for us to advocate that this is brought.
How does us advocating
brought in-
hear this now rather than outside on the streets where this challenge is actually taking place and where this war is occurring, how does that not change anything?
It's important to.
Why did you choose to read this 1 scenes inside of here?
Because I think it's important.
You think it's important? Okay.
Like-
Do we have to play our own video, or like if let's say we read a counter advocacy, or can we agree that when we both agree on the same end goal, we can have a productive discussion about the best methodology towards that that end goal?
You don't need.
Like we don't need to
bring.
re-perform the 1AC. Sorry.
What do you mean?
No, John's shaking his head. No.
You
We're
don't
gonna
have
take
to
a little
play
bit of
video.
preparation. Yep. Oh, hey, last question. I think we can all agree like the discourse that we choose to use is important. So can we hold you to defending your entire 1AC? Instead of just like the implementation of the 1AC, which I think we can.
I don't think the 1AC says discourse first.
Okay. John, you will defend your plan text.
Yeah,
Is that correct? Okay, I just want to double check. I think that's great.
Where's our slow paper?
It was exactly the same deal out of America.
I don't know.
This is like what happened. You'd be like, I have this crazy KR, and Tyler and I'd be like, and Sarah, no. And then you'd just be like,
You can keep doing it. Maybe in the next thing.
let me do it more. Oh, yeah. Oh, he's running. It wasn't good. It was crazy.
That's I think that's good. I think that's good. We already had this discussion across the Control.
We'll give it the.
Do you want to borrow some large paper? I think we have some extra.
We'll take it after.
Okay, well, sounds good. Thanks.
Large scale.
No, there's a big thing for.
I'll be the prize.
Depends on the strategy.
I think that's not a bad idea. But we should read it as a
We can just put it up. In the front.
I don't know if you can get around here.
Yeah, we're giving you paper. We can throw it.
They only have pink lemonade, Arjun? I hope that's okay. The guy was like, I was like, can I have a lemonade? He's like, it's pink, is that okay? I was like, just for Arjun. Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I don't think we'll.
And then,
Depends what you should.
sorry, is it possible I can get a copy of?
It's one of my favorite parts. Okay.
Yeah.
You're running real
Oh,
close
no.
to one on
Oh, I love that idea.
Sorry. Here, I'll give you another $5 tip.
Begins return.
Tell you what, I'm gonna slide that under 517.
Oh, I like them.
Fantastic. Thank you. That,
I don't have you seen what they're speakers.
Yeah,
Sure.
dude.
Thank you.
thank you.
I like the second one the best.
Me too.
Yeah, but like the third one was okay. I think what we want in the case is just like a and all out.
Sick.
No. No, don't. I prep's still going.
Yeah, prep's still going.
I'm going.
I don't have to turn up the volume all the way, do I?
I did, but it's up to you. I did, but it's up to you. No, this is some stuff.
Yeah. And you like die because of piracy. If you pirate it, you lose because people pirate your game. That game is so bad. Oh my god, so much. I was busy magic.
Put this on inequality.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I came in here triple fisted. I will leave here no fist. And then I'll go to the hospital. That's fair.
Listen, so one of the narratives of this weekend is that I haven't.
All right, now I'm gonna stop. So there's 5:30 used.
Okay.
So that leaves us with 4:30 left.
So you want to write it down? Alright.
Thanks, sir.
John and I have misplaced our flow paper.
Yeah.
Oh
we'll
no, you
grab this
didn't.
right now.
No, there's a
You
ton.
didn't flow. It's 2 0 half.
There's the flow paper. We got it.
Now, what I can do is.
Yummy with ends.
Yep.
My.
To not be distracting, I'm going to leave this up for now, but then I'll switch to the video after she's done. Unless we all want to stare at the video. Well, maybe we should do this.
It's obvious.
Maybe if you got maybe if you just scroll through the speech doc.
Oh yeah, well, you can flow right along. Well, I'll have to do that myself actually. So my black is like. Seriously?
Yes.
Hey, Arjun, that's another 5
Can I borrow
seconds.
y'all stands since the projector is
425.
Oh yeah, sure.
John, if I could grab it when you're done, that'd be great.
I think Keenan's so
Oh yeah, Keenan, when you're done, that'd be great. If I could just grab it.
The written one for hearing. There we go. She's right across.
Okay, I'm gonna give, I guess I have to talk first, so I guess.
You do have to talk first.
Okay. One second.
You should give an order too.
I know, I need to find the thing. Well, I use it. Yeah, well, their thing is understand and this. Okay, so the order will be 5 and then inequality planning. So first, I'm going to give you a thank you speech, but I'm going to be quick because for everyone who knows me, I will cry if I keep talking. First, we want to thank you, the University of Kentucky, for hosting this tournament and running it so well and smoothly. We obviously want to thank the judges for being here so late when I'm sure you guys probably have other things you have to be doing. We want to thank our opponents. It's always such a pleasure to debate CP McClatchy. It's pretty cool that we get to debate them in the finals after them being one of our first debates of the year. We want to thank District 225 and our principal, Mr. Prima, for doing such a good job of always keeping the debate program so strong at our school. I want to thank my parents for always supporting me in debate, as well as Nate's parents for always supporting us in debate. I want to thank my team members who left earlier today, but we actually had the privilege this year of qualifying a total of 10 debaters to the TOC, which was a big accomplishment for our squad, and that included 9 out of 10 third-year debaters, so we're really proud of all of them, and they were really such a helpful part of our success this weekend and such a key part of our team. We want to thank our coaching staff. It's so great that everyone comes out this weekend when I think a lot of them also probably have things they might rather be doing, but they come support us. Greenstein, obviously, both for being really supportive of us and being such a great coach, and also for putting up with me, which might be even harder. I want to thank Nate. It's really such an honor that I get to stand up here with him in the finals of the TOC after last year as a sophomore, sitting in the audience and watching him get to the finals. I'm really glad that I got to do it with him this year. And lastly, just the debate community in general, who has really changed my high school experience and made it really special. So, no tears. I'm going to start 5 off in case someone is here.
Would be a reason to vote negative. Next up is the disadvantage. The justification of the use of apartheid in the context is a reason to reject the affirmative. Trivial as any part of this decision rule, this is a frame nation vote negative. To be complicit with the violent ignorance and unjustified even though the one he sees right PLP and 10 the reference of American history is vitalized. The horrors of the apartment putting the level on the typical justice history PNN is ignorance of the horrors of apartment where he would never have made such a statement that high school blitz phenomenon in comparison to South Africans or being killed and browned up as literacy part of the Italian offensive and injured compared to the streets with the overt subjugation of the people. Next up is the counter advocacy. Nate and I advocate for an increase in participation of people in cover low income people in the planning of education, equal quality community, and education, and economic development, investment in rural city neighborhoods. The affirmative choice is a mechanism of transmission is not neutral, describes an able source of movement, and creates cultural inequalities. I'm bringing to the table the ability highly summarized by the environment, the never condition, the orders of movement, and revolve around core potential, the bodily competence, the transportation tree, people's burdens and description of different institutions, and the first cannot identify which treaties and things described, needs to reinforce the power of transportation, quantity, different equality of disabled people's lives. These corporal divisions are the foundation of genetic mass extermination. Together, Wilson says eugenics, the heteronormative foundation of the evolutionary practices, still got science system, and by all the difference of eugenics, certain individuals needed, rather than social and cultural environments, excluding disabled persons, powerful members of the human community. Disability has been stigmatized in order to marginalize and constrain and limiting individuals with disabilities. Next up is the second counter advocacy with the struggle of Roxburgh and Nathaniel. I advocate for an increase in the participation of people of color and low-income people in the planning of transportation infrastructure, the absent endorsement of investment lives, and the illiberal model of governance, so capturing and private partnerships and for democratic control destroy the public sphere. These plans always centered around profit maximization, EDMA, and management public neoliberal reason is working to consider on the filter of economic incentive construction of the emotional variety and simple function, the privatization by partnerships, practices, rich governments embrace the discourses and practices of a contrary emotional corporation decisions are isolated from public. The liberation trade is managed technocratic society and implementation democratic modes, or restrict our high culture and trade on the contextual choice which makes the isolation, rather makes the technical isolation of public policy possible. Their neoliberal takeover of the state towards the case by propagating by politics of disposability and reducing the populations to waste, which makes violence possible, restore and love the bypolitics of reasons of social things to exist not only to be replaced by corporate citizens intended warding out democratic sensibilities of population to be marginalized and reduced to the status of citizens to waste the best population of subject to condition of life conferring upon them. The standard of living them the neoliberal bypolitics responsibility ushers them in the forms of social justice running populations. And expect on the last off is the criticism. There are good parts of debate and bad parts of debate, as we are all aware, but as we power relates insults in this room in a single hotel room in Kentucky pretend we have done anything by simply reading and wanting to see playing a video. This is Williams to change power relates to account for me. False with the free influence says in the sounds of inequality, the endorsement of equality, the gift of equality, the legislative and active body, the true power of the right service, the security, the empowerment, emphasize what is in some cultural inequality, so it's image of real social political progress. While playing this video may appease us, it serves not to create any real change, but rather negative change that increases our own hegemony and leads to a narcissistic and free enforcement power, which turns Kate Williams and to create the initiative of charity. We always agree how you are always intended to subvert the egos and assume that hegemonical opportunities or to make minority populations feel better. The majority can however that's a cost and further narcissism. The majority roots has the effort of empowering the empowered and feeling the versus and seeking the advantage. Their demand for the ballot is trapped in the web of scheming and commodification. These positions their call for change insurance ethics. McGowan in 2009 we help remember corrections and connect standing yourself while obedience to moral laws, radical evil obedience for the wrong reasons, the circumstances of obedience system, morality of calculations and ethics of scheming to not act on the basis of the right and wrongs of the exercise of orders to choose the ultimate object to degrade there. And even it's like one of the objects of one schemes. The alternative is to vote negative is an act of not voting affirmative because you want to see the point. The end point is right to be the Dark Knight. This is the only option for true heroes in the substantial change. This is McGowan in 2009. The Dark Knight. Under my TV, the hero cannot appear as a pro without the mask of the ego. Good remains strong in calculation, but the mask of the ego good. Remains keeping that's immediate heroes and any mediation is wrong with heroes and the knowledge of which the loss of Batman takes responsibilities outside Jeff has been seen in his own marriage. Irrevocably with the evil notice taking that that's hero. Batman must take the responsibility. This is just a true hero because at least without any recognition of hero responsibility must be united itself without any hope for greater reward for a greater reward rather than being celebrated as savior. True heroes must identify themselves with their evil. That we fight.
I hope the sound works.
Oh, well, this is awkward.
Well, we have you were pretty fast, so we have some time. Hey Spurlock, do you know how to turn on the sound?
Let's see if this will do it.
There we go.
So be it. Take the Batman into custody. I am the Batman.
Why is he letting Harvey do this?
He went down to the press conference.
I know, and he just stood by.
Perhaps both Bruce and Mr. Dent believe that Batman stands for something more than the whims of a terrorist, Miss Dawes. Even if everyone hates him for it, that's the sacrifice he's making. He's not being a hero. He's being something more.
Inequality.
One more advocacy results in wetlands destruction and pushes species into a state of Rodriguez in 1918 for conjunction materials development of transportation of river rights and draining land and reducing wetland areas and driving out the flood of one species. Animals are becoming extinct too as wetlands are important to the right. They're also important to biological diversity. RCW in the United States for hydrological water contributions and violence support the biological diversity. Wetlands are an integral part of the hydrological playing a key role in the basis of all life on Earth. 2, 3. This is also an important ethical consideration. Species essential shouldn't be tolerated coal. In 94, there's no chance to be against the board of cause indigenous species. Whether the commissioner mission is evil, prevention must be along tenant among humans. Responsibilities for the cases now where they simply handing out transportation isn't solve ethics potentially only creates segregation. This is Rodriguez, not a trend that facilitates independent urban landscape social cohesion can be separate on future transportation facilities cut across the existing urban community. Transportation can be creating segregation among transportation facilities. Affect the quality of urban lands are creating physical barriers, increasing the noise levels, and reducing aesthetic and surpassing the built heritage. The planning advantage one, util is key. Even if ethics are important, Kamuski United States unfortunately believes that all these debatable value than the solution. It follows maximum prevent the lives of many beings possible. First, that fundamentally equality that dictates some of the most enemies. And that dictates that dictates that some must enemies give the way for the sake of others. Choose the plan is networks for the application of the other victimization terms, framing the poverty restriction other resident encounter with unpredictable indifferences and exercise. Summarizing the strips in the lives of meaning and justifies violence by doing 93 the suffering that creates a man with animal substance. Reducing the living organisms, bureaucrats treat their victims like animals because eventually the G becomes such animals with the right and sister of the HMX and the border. That's for suffering, civilization is immoral, makes man be honest with the relation of God, which peace and anarchy in our markets of the charitable legislation, the subject is pulled up the side of the divisions and haggard. Animal is exposed to what the region of ethics puts out with today's satisfaction of the argument to which the misery of the third world is a result of children's of humanity. You don't want to play more Batman?
No, I'm good. No. Here are a few cards you should read instead with the remaining words of time.
On this case?
Yeah, you can just read on the case.
Okay.
Although we read our advocacy conditional, that is a good thing. Forcing debating defending unconditional positions is not ethical, rather enforcing the unethical demand for destroying. Like forcing an unconditional ethics creates an exception, and they must always be followed, which results in fascism. McGowan and then exceptionally simultaneously votes civil rights is large scale. Or exceptionality plays the key role in China's democracy, fashion, and exceptional. It never comes to an end.
Great. Thank you.
Second Batman?
No, it's okay. Thank you.
The only argument that we've made about something, I guess, a systemic impact would be the RCW. Okay, well, two arguments. One, if you don't build anything, I think we should do a 2 totality violation. Two is that
okay. Bullard's use of apartheid was meant to describe the very serious racial and economic divide that keeps a lot of people around the country in continuous poverty. Why is this an inaccurate use of the word apartheid?
That is a really great link to our argument, so thanks for that. Because the PLP in 2010 argument, it's not about the, okay, so the argument is that the example this piece of evidence gives is when there has been things like gun violence in Bermuda and people have used
and that was caused by people saying apartheid.
People have used the word apartheid to, as a, I guess, they've compared the apartheid with that violence and that's bad.
Okay. so they can live their lives.
This was more towards the beginning of our prep time, so I'm not sure which piece of evidence it is, but I actually wrote this counterpoint text out of a piece of your 1AC evidence, which outlined all of these as a bunch of other things that crush inequality.
So inequality is just something to be solved. It doesn't matter if some people are still.
Certainly not. However, we've defined a bunch of other methods that also have the potential using transportation as the starting point. The counterplan, which starts disrupting the norms of social
So does the
equality.
counterplan ever lead to or create transportation planning? Like community building is a pretty vague term.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's certainly possible. However, transportation infrastructure is not the locus point of our advocacy.
Finally, the investment pick.
Sure.
How do you think you can solve any of the 1AC advantages without investing in the planning process?
I think that most of your 1AC internal links are based off of planning the TI and including those who are disadvantaged.
Okay, starting prep.
How much prep did you guys have left?
Us, I believe it's 4 something. 425. 425. Yeah, 7 o'clock.
Now, are you done with the projector?
Oh yeah, let's yeah.
Actually, we'll probably just leave it right here if we should be, yeah.
I feel like. I mean, what if we just disconnected?
Yeah, if you want to do that, I'm totally good.
Yeah. That way you can think about your speech unless you go. Alright, I'm gonna hold on to that. I'm gonna walk around it and I'll check it out there. Okay. Where is this connected to the other side? So I should be doing it first. Okay. Great. Is there someplace we should move this, or just no one steps on it?
No one walk in front of us. Sue will crush it. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
If we break that, I have to pay the school so much money, so please don't.
Sewell's got a ton of it, so don't worry about it. He got it covered.
Alright. Sorry about that.
Can I get the tub here? Okay, before I start, I'm sorry it's going to be a little bit long, but my career in debate has been incredible, but it has also been just honestly absolutely a miracle, and I mean this in every sense of the word. I never thought I would be here in the finals of the TOC. Both my middle and high school programs were cut by the California state budget. We have no funding from our school. We get kicked out because our school can't afford to even keep the lights on open after 4 o'clock. And I'm not trying to say that just to complain. I just want that to be sort of a way that you look at how amazing it is for everyone who has contributed to us in terms of helping us to get where we are today, despite all the obstacles. So I'll try to make it relatively quick. Michael Holt introduced me to debate in middle school, one of the finest educators I've ever met, who changed the lives of me and my fellow students. Marcus Walton also introduced me into high school debate, one of the nicest men I've ever met, and every fundamental skill that I use in debate, in every debate, was taught by his guiding hand. Seth Blackman, who took up his mantle after he was forced to quit. And I think that the educational opportunities provided by summer camps were like indescribably important to a person who does not have a lot of coaching resources at home. A special shout out to the Gonzaga Debate Institute. I attended 3 times. I think it's the best debate institute in the country, and at least that I've been to. All of my lab leaders there were great, and I think they all deserve recognition. Chris Stone, Matt Moore, Sam Maurer, who coached the NDT champs, Jeff Lundeen, who taught me that the most strategic arguments in debate are topicality and the critique, Stephen Pointer, who is the smartest person I've ever met, bar none, Brian Rubai, who I firmly believe that there is no nicer human being on the planet Earth, Eric Lanning and Leah Michalski, who were here but have left and are awesome, and finally and most importantly, Jason Russell, who is a total hard-nosed but an absolutely superb educator who forced me to get good at debate, even when it was hard. I'd also like to thank some of the people in this very room, my parents who are sitting back there who have been incredibly supportive, both financially and emotionally. I'd like to thank Glenbrook North. Natalie and Nate are also one of my favorite teams to debate this year, 2 incredibly nice young individuals, and I loved watching GBN in finals last year as well, and I'm glad to be here again. But most importantly, I'd like to thank my partner Keenan. We started off the year a little bit rough and had some both personal and competitive differences, but I believe that we have forged a very strong bond in the intense fires of very competitive debate rounds, which is a great place to do it. I've immensely enjoyed working with him this year, both as a debate partner and as a person to spend like half of my weekends with. I couldn't be here without you, man, and I appreciate your presence at every debate tournament this year, even when it meant putting up with sometimes an undue amount of BS from me or the rest of the team or whatever was going on at the tournament. I'm really happy about all the success we've had this year, and I know you're absolutely going to kill it in college. Okay. It's the theory argument, the procedural business, inequality, planning, apartheid, TI pick, investment pick, critique.
You think he's just gonna flip it to us?
Oh, he's gonna pay.
Oh yeah, the only thing on the computer was
No.
thank you speech.
Oh, it's all good.
If you want to just put it here, or spot, maybe it's just easier to just put there. Thank you.
I'm digging the water bottle.
Thank you. All right, everyone's ready? Good. Yep. We do not link to any of their theoretical offense because we will always defend the advocacy statement. However, you cannot separate the advocacy from the performance. Our advocacy is to bring people into the process of transportation planning and discussion, and the performance literally brought them in. These two things are inseparable, which means that we cannot take one away from the other, which is also going to implicate all of their arguments on the picks. Go to the case debate. They say transportation infrastructure kills the environment. First off, the impact is inevitable. There's transportation infrastructure now. There's going to be transportation in the future. It's just a question of whether we plan it in a way that is inclusive or exclusive. Grangs for the purpose of public transit is supplemented by economic efficiency. Recent changes to transportation policy are influenced by neoliberal political agenda. Support for transit is growing, but national policy has been at the same time encouraged a shift within the transit program that is likely to harm those who depend most on transit. Also, the affirmative solves our bullet evidence specifically indicates that we bring concerns of environmental justice into the planning process, which means we are net better than the status quo. They say transportation leads to segregation. The affirmative solves this argument. It says that the way TI is implemented creates barriers between communities, but by bringing the communities into the planning process, they would obviously be able to tell us when TI is being implemented wrong and change that. They say, go to the planning advantage. They say util. Util would vote affirmative. If you are going to maximize the utility of the happiness of all people, you should affirm to maximize the utility and happiness of people who have been excluded in the status quo. It also is not a reason to vote negative because they don't have a utilitarian impact that outweighs. They say that we victimize the other. No, we do not. We are an image of empowerment for the people that are shown in the documentary by allowing them to speak their voice. There is no victimization. We say that they should be empowered to become part of the transportation planning process. They say unconditional X are the bag. The affirmative solves fascism by breaking down the structure where only experts get to talk in the transportation planning process. Our affirmative is able to solve this because we don't make the judgments about how transportation should be planned. We say that other people should make them who are part of the community and know how those decisions should be made. The status quo is much worse for this argument because experts make all the decisions. Go to the apartheid flow. First off, this card is defending gun violence. It indicates that gun violence is not that bad. It's not compared to apartheid. Additionally, we apologize for the rhetoric of the 1AC if it was considered offensive. We will also, when the discourse focus is not able to produce productive politics, you must change the material world like transportation and infrastructure. That's Brian 12. The academic left falls prey to abstraction. It's good at carrying out critiques that denounce social formations, yet very poor at proposing realistic alternatives. Even though critiques are right, we express them in a way only a PhD can understand. How exactly is Adorno to affect the world if only PhDs can understand? To make worse, we give our talks at academic conferences attended only by other academics. What are these things for? If it's an accident that no producing change in the world, they denounce others for not engaging in the questions we want to engage in. When they don't embrace every bit of the doctrine we endorse, we never make concrete proposals for how things ought to be restructured, for what new infrastructures need to be produced, and what we do, our critique and confiscated cynics and skeptics immediately jump in with analysis of all the ways in which these things contain dirty secrets, ugly motives that are doomed to fail. How are we to do anything at all when we have no concrete proposals? What are your proposals? How will you navigate existing material features of infrastructure? Marx and Lenin had proposals. Do you? Today, we are so intellectually bankrupt on these points. We need something more. A melding of the ecologist, the Marxist, and the anarchist. I would love to hear a radical talk about his ideal high school. How would he provide energy to that school? How would he meet building codes? How would she provide food? What would be your plan for waste disposal? How would you navigate the school board, legislative government? What is your plan? If you want to make a revolutionary constitution, this is where you start. Why should anyone bother to listen to you if you are proposing real plans? We're saying revolution is the answer without addressing any infrastructural questions of what alternatives it would offer and how we go about building alternatives. We need less critique because we know the critiques. We know the problems. We're intoxicated with critique because it's easy and safe. We best every opponent with critique, but what do we really do with critique? We need carpentry. Everyone knows something is wrong. Everything knows the system is destruction. None of us are proposing alternatives. Instead, we prefer to shout and denounce. Good luck with that. This does not come first. Our evidence indicates that materiality is the focus that should be for your ballot because it creates actual inequality. It is also an accurate analogy. Spatial apartheid has been created in America by distancing people from their ability to access avenues that would get them out of oppression. Their link evidence, it's not talking about the affirmative, but we are using the term very specifically. Go to the pick. First off, the status quo is much worse for disabled people because the transportation planning process focuses solely on economic rationality, which means it is unable to account for their needs. There's only risk the affirmative is better because it creates more inclusive planning, which is able to solve the benefit. Transportation infrastructure is inevitable. That was above. It's just a question of whether it's inclusive. They solve none of the affirmative. Transportation infrastructure is key to allow people to benefit from, to access the benefits that their counterplan text talks about. Also, you need to give the people what they want, not what you want to give them. Our argument is that the community makes the decisions, not the debaters, which means that they will never be able to solve. Also, our affirmative opens up the black box of transportation planning, which provides an opportunity for continuous critique. Permutation solves all of their arguments. Wilson 1. Transportation planning is not divorced from social justice. Democracy creates the transportation planning process that links transportation issues to broad social concerns. The effect of new forms of participation in democratic capacity planning engage the public in thinking about values and open the process to create participation. Public participation is part of the process. The communicative planning encourages continuous critique about planning rather than cookbook-like planning. Your communicative rationality involves experimental approaches because process is explicit part of the planning activity. Go to the next pick. The affirmative obviously solve this. Make them prove that the community would choose neoliberal infrastructures to create systems of exclusion. This link argument is also about the way the state uses investment. We are not the state. We are transportation planners. We're changing the way that we make our decisions. Also, the permutation will be able to solve this because it restructures the city in the way that transportation has been planned to be neoliberal. The affirmative would obviously solve because they are able to. It's able to break down the experts who have a focus on neoliberalism. Did you highlight which of these cards?
Okay, all both of those.
F solves neoliberal exclusion. Free market 11. Detroit's example is becoming a mean with the American transport assertion. The rise of neoliberal ideologies encourages a retreat from social redistribution. This has affected public transportation, which is deployed to attack capital political elites with its resources to stimulate economic development. Investments in favor of business elites over everyday users. There's no political will to invest outside of the wealthiest areas. Go to the Batman critique. First off, permutation do both. There is if they are saying that our advocacy is good, but it should not happen here, you should still vote affirmative because they agree with our advocacy. We have not argued that the debate space is unequivocally key. We do not preclude bringing the alternative outside of the debate space. We have merely provided a jumping off point. Additionally, the ballot is not a grand meeting. It signifies that we did the better debating when we have provided a productive solution to a problem that we have identified in the status quo. We also have an affirmative, so the entire reason to vote affirmative is not based on affirming our own personal self-gain, but because we provided a better method for engaging with the harms of the status quo. The one I see was not an act of using people for our personal gain, which is what their link argument is. That's why we gave up our speech time to allow other people to talk about the problems instead of trying to represent them because we knew we would never be able to. Debate is the right forum. Hundreds of people are watching this round online, and in this debate it is important to discuss these issues. And saying that we should just get rid of them because of some silly critical theory cards about Batman has no impact on actually changing the world productively to create a more form of socially just equal society. The debate is a game, but it's not a joke. You cannot solve. It requires overall deferral and dismissal through the alternative by getting rid of the discussion of social equity, which our Bullard evidence specifically indicts and says it creates a race-neutral politics that allows exclusion to become possible. Additionally, they are playing make-believe while not engaging with the real world that our Bryan evidence means they will never be able to solve. Sacrificing the what I see is bad because we have proved it is good, and democracy is the inclusive democracy is the best political system, is comparatively better than the alternative and abstract theorizing Calder 10. Democratic practice or questions of inclusion are key. The legitimacy of a democratic decision depends on the degree to which those affected have been included in the decision-making process. What are the conditions of genuine participation in the decision-making process? Should we treat this as philosophical questions? The answer is no. Rorty seeks additional physical questions about rationality to human subjects, truth, the ultimate moral order from liberal or democratic institutions over alternatives. The question of whether the community entails truth is irrelevant. It's not clear how they relate to citizens. Do they care whether there's some philosophical corroboration of the political system they operate under? Does philosophical negotiation make any difference to the real life of participants in the democratic decision-making? No, to both questions. I need to mark that card.
That's okay, both questions.
Alright, I guess we should talk about this piece of Bryant 12 evidence that you so nicely wish us luck with. It says that the alternative is trapped in the academy performing vague theorizing. I'm a bit confused about how this implicates the apartheid argument that we've made, because it seems to talk about things like theory in the grand scheme of things as opposed to comparing.
Well, I sort of retagged it on the fly to sort of contextualize it to your your dised, as I think you called it. But the argument is that trying to focus on the discursive elements of our affirmative as opposed to the material elements prioritizes discussion of critical theory's way to abstract good ideas by bringing up hidden motives, and the real point of the 1AC was to distract from this type of violence, which means we never are able to get anything done because these cynical criticisms always pop up and always mean that we can't conclude that something's a good idea.
I guess that long explanation matches the long card, but the second half of the piece of evidence talks about how simply talking about things in theory and placing emphasis on things like performance means that we never actually take action. Why does this not apply to the affirmative?
Well, you've sort of missed our framework argument. You didn't read a framework contention.
No,
our
I'm not
argument is that the debate space...
Yes, but I'm not making a framework argument.
Yeah, I know,
I'm more
I know.
asking you about your ability to solve.
Yeah, the debate space is a simulation of a transportation planning process. We are transportation planners. We've proposed a change to the transportation planning process that is better than the current transportation planning process.
This talks about how we need to propose real plans as opposed to simply talking about the process.
I would argue that changing transportation planning to include more people than experts is a real plan. That's a real suggestion. That could be brought up in Congress.
There is no specific implementation as per the 1AC.
Our argument is that we are planners.
Okay,
We have planned the entire year and we planned wrong.
Fair enough. The Batman critique?
Yeah.
So, you've made a lot of pretty in-depth explanation here, but I guess what I don't understand is you've made this performance as per the 1AC. How does it actually spill over to solve for any of your impacts as they exist in the real world?
Right. First, you've conceded our role-playing argument. This AF defends role-playing. It's role-playing good because we are transportation planners, which means that your spillover claims aren't exactly relevant, but I will defend that hundreds of people watching a debate about the last time we will discuss transportation infrastructure can have a lasting impact on the way we remember the topic and the way we remember...
And I totally agree with you,
Okay.
and it's pretty cool that so many people are watching this debate, but I guess what I'm asking is, do you think that anyone in this room or anyone who's watching this video is going to go to Congress and request that these changes are made, or go into their communities and actually make these changes?
I don't presume to know how other people react to the performance of the 1AC, to be honest. I hope so. That's all I can really say. Is that I hope
Will
so.
you do so?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Okay.
425 is alright.
Correct.
Thanks.
Okay.
do you both have the speech?
Yep.
Yeah, great. Sorry about that.
Oh man, where did I put that pen to mark the card?
You can borrow one of mine.
Oh, here it is. Here you go.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right. I did not think I'd be doing this again, which is the very reason I did not pre-type out a speech or think about this before, because I somehow stumbled my way into finals again. And for that, I'm very thankful and feel incredibly privileged. But I don't know. It's a supreme honor. So thank you all. To begin, as Natalie started out, thank you very much for the University of Kentucky and everybody on the team for all the ballot running and everything in the tab room. Everything was pristine and it made the tournament run really smoothly. Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Ms. Reed, everybody. It's a pleasure to always come here to have them host the TOC. Thank you also to the panel. It's late. You guys are probably sick of all those silly videos, but thanks for suffering and bearing through with us. Thank you guys. Seriously, it's been a real pleasure and it's an honor. Seriously, and congratulations. Thanks also to, I doubt he's watching because it's a little bit late, but thank you to our superintendent as well as our principal, Mr. Hama. They've been unbelievably supportive of the GBN debate team and are a huge reason why we are so successful and have the ability to do as well as we do. Thank you to my parents. I know you are probably sick of me. You'll probably never see this video, and I'm sorry I don't call. It's because I am very busy, but thank you for all your support. Thank you to our coaching staff this weekend, Dylan Quigley, Louis Petit, all the other people who helped us, Evan and Linda and everybody. Really, it's so much of an honor to work with you guys and for all the things you've done for us. Thank you to Coach Greenstein, who, oh man, the things I have to say about him. The second year, and I won't make a joke, but really, thank you for everything. It's been a real honor working with you as well, and congratulations on your engagement to Melanie. I want to thank all my team members for your undying support, as well as looking up to me as a leader. That means a lot to me, and it's the reason I debate. I don't debate for success or because it makes me feel good or because I like the intellectual gambit. Because you, as my teammates, inspire me. The fact, as Natalie mentioned, that we have sent 9 third-year debaters to the TOC. That is what I strive for at the beginning of the year. Not to be in finals again, but to have that many teams and all of our teams at the TOC. Lastly, I just want to thank. Oh, God, I can't cry. Lastly, I just want to thank Natalie. I'm sorry this is taking so long, but despite all the fights we had about lack of cutting cards, despite every conflict and everything, thank you for everything. Really, thank you. I guess before I give the order, I just want to thank the debate community as a whole and everybody in this room. You all are not transportation planners. Instead, you guys are my home. Well, I'm sure I'm going to bring that up in my speech in a second. It really does mean a lot to me. Debate is a place where we can all participate, where you're not born a good debater. You're not born a better debater than someone else, just like you're born a faster runner or a better football player. That definitely, those genes were not passed to me, but it's a place where we all kind of find a home. So, especially with the things that have happened this year, I am so appreciative of every single person who's made this a place where I feel safe and I can be myself. So, thank you. And without further ado, the order. Sorry for taking so long. Oh man, if I tear through the speech, I apologize.
It's fun to say that.
Okay, the order is going to be framework very briefly, the procedural. Then it will be the ableism pick, the TI pick, I believe he labeled it. The investment pick, and then the Dark Knight critique. The Dark Knight, I don't know what to call it. Okay. Up to you. Nat, can you give me the green timer?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Is anybody not ready? Great. The idea that we had to perform the 1EC is something that we waded through in crossings. You conceded in the 1EC crossings. We had to re-perform or replay our own video just to capture quote-unquote the 1EC. However, the very idea of commodifying your performance so that you can guard against these quote-unquote solvency of our other alternatives and picks is exactly the link we're criticizing. It is the commodification and use of debate arguments as well as the ethical potential of a video of people who have been suffering in the past to try and win a debate. That will be a little bit low on the link debate. On the quote-unquote critique the Abelson pick, we are not going for permutations or just a tested competition. However, his argument about committing allowing his argument why they saw because they allow the decision making to be done by not by experts but not by the debaters is exactly our point on the critique. We debaters have no control of this process, and thinking that we do is exactly the type of problems that replicates the problems that we want to see the investment pick. We're not going for permutations or just tested competition. At worst, the alternative in the pick that Ned will be sending the winner will solve all of their link turns as well as the Dark Knight critique. Batman, the Dark Knight offers us a critical lesson on ethics that I thought a long time about. Even though he saves Gotham City, he purports himself as the most ethical hero. He deliberately turns down the potential reward and recognition. Why? Why does he do this? As we watched during the 1EC, his Alfred's sister Rachel Dawes in the film, perhaps both Ruth and Mr. Dent believe that Batman stands for something more important, Miss Dawes. That is the sacrifice he is making. He is not being a true hero. He is being something more. The affirmative is the right idea, but has failed to engage in true ethics, in true change to be that something more. Instead of acting as Batman, would they position themselves arbitrarily as the White Knights, the Golden Heroes, simply because, quote unquote, as Keenan said in the 1EC, they have read a 1EC and played a video of someone who has suffered in the past. Our critique has been, and then after that, they begged and demanded to be rewarded with the ballot. Our critique begs the fundamental question of whether or not demanding the ballot in a competitive debate space in return for ethical advocacy is a productive methodology for change. Change is not limited to the single room. Change is not work solely in a world where we all, for some reason, pretend to be transportation planners for an hour and a half. Our answer to this question is no. Thus, our alternative: do not vote affirmative, stretching the metaphor a bit more instead of allowing the F to tout themselves as crusaders and the White Knights of the suffering other who have they've demonstrated in the video that they employed the judge to vote negative to be the Dark Knight, endorsing YC but not take credit for it. Instead of commodifying suffering through competitive debate, the judge should endorse their ethics through a politics where we instead actually go out and help these people for this hour and a half. Think about if everybody in this room, instead of simulating being a transportation policy planner, actually went out to the streets, served at a soup kitchen, or actually challenged these different things as described in their video, which is a solvency advocate and a solvency description of what our alternative would look like. It would look like all of us in this room agreeing at the start of the 1EC and the end of the 1EC that instead of having competitive debate, it would result in a tie, and we all go out and have and pivot and do these types of things that they are asking us for now. And this also has an independent benefit that I'll get to below, but we have treat this as a functional pick out of voting affirmative, which means that if we win any reason why voting AF is bad, including link turns to the 1EC, you should choose not to vote AF as the judge. You can still endorse their ethics, and in fact, their ethics are in fact correct, but that does not mean you should succumb to their demand to about here. Our DAs, I'm going to start at the top because these are all DAs to the permutation, which inherently includes their call for the ballot. First is the commodification DA, which was briefly touched upon at the top of the overview. Sub 1A is demanding the ballot rewards commodification utility, thinking the straight up link turns the case when one does something good, not for the sake of something good, but rather for some exterior motive to try and win the debate. That's not truly ethical. This is particularly powerful in the case, the turns case argument in the context of the Kumar arguments in the 1EC. It's a critique of status quo policy planning because it's become instrumentally rational, which means that instead of having the ethics of an action simply be the ends itself, instead it's just a means to another end. In other words, it's a means to get to the ballot. That's exactly what their 1EC evidence is criticizing. Whether or not they truly desire the ballot is not a relevant question, or whether or not they truly are sincere in their advocacy, even though I know they are. It's not a relevant question. If those things are all true, we could have had a productive discussion, and all of us could have gone outside, and if they truly took their time to understand the other as he is criticizing the 2EC, they would recognize that even if there's a risk they allow for community awareness because there's a video playing, that is not a reason they should have demanded the ballot, and you see suffering as others as a means to that end, which manipulates and markets their stories. This outweighs any potential benefit of the act of voting after. This is called in 2006. Traumatic storytelling is an activity that produces narratives of traumatic suffering. Victims storytellers in South Africa are seeking protections against the manipulation and marketization of the stories of abuse. Given the nature of competitive debate, it's not awareness that they generate, but commodification. Even potential awareness does not get at the heart of the issues because it's snipped and fitted to match only a few cards in the 1EC AK when they chose. This proves the false sincerity of their advocacy and turns their ethics by regulating and homogenizing the suffering of the other. Colvin in 2006. In other words, when they reduce all the suffering of the problems to that one video, that is the problem. Colvin in 2006, the Academy produced stories of suffering victims to become commodified actions. Other effects include regulation stories, shortening the stories that fit within lines. The ideas that victims have a single story, unitary, unchanging narrative. This bolsters the need for alternatives to acknowledge the detriment of the competitive debate states, we agree with you, debate is the right form. The question is how we engage in that form and the way we use that form. We all agree that all of this room itself, debate itself, has the immense potential for change. The question is then whether we reduce it to a competitive game where we throw cards at each other and use ethics as a means to win the bout, or simply actually use the people, the wonderful people in this room, including ourselves, to create that change. Now, the first argument is the permutation, which was the link debate already done above. There are other DAs to voting affirmative that also straight turn the case that are also DAs to the permutation. I will get that to a little bit lower. However, anything else for the extending the permutation is obviously severance because it severs our demand for the belt. When I asked and when you see cross-examination, why should the judges vote affirmative? Keenan did not have to say yes, which is exactly our argument. This is the locus point in which we can debate the app because that's the locus point of negative offense. Anything else destroys our ability to have a productive discussion and destroys negative fairness. Now, the other DAs is the voting affirmative endorses a conservative pedagogy. The argument was briefly introduced on the overview, but the key argument to note is that for the 1AC to be true, there's a presupposition that humans are intrinsically good and that we are capable of ethical decision making. If that is true, then forcing us to negate you in a competitive debate space instead of having that open forum discussion like I believe it was Kentucky or Louisiana did in CETA finals a couple years ago, forces us to do research to impact terms like Nietzsche or other arguments like ethics are bad and choose that trains debaters in a bad conservative pedagogy where we are forced to have this sick disconnect from our arguments, which trains us to be bad people. Atchison and Panetta 2009, one example might include a judgment from an activist team in effort to help racial elimination, generating community discussion, losing team services, scapegoats, and little generate the critical coalition that should be addressing the problem because competitive focus encourages teams to concentrate on how to beat the strategy with little regard for addressing the problem, trading change through wins generates backlash through losses. Now the third dissad is to voting affirmative to the permutation is the pseudo-progress arguments that were functionally conceded. The disconnect between the ability of the 1AC to literally read a pre-typed out speech and play a video that they had already thought of and create that actual change that we all agree is so important is exactly our argument. And all these solvency arguments as well as the role-playing good arguments linked to all of these arguments. That was already that was the one in Williams Evans and the one in C. Now the second argument is that we do not preclude an alternative space. There are three arguments here, all the links, and I just did above are reasons why the choice of choosing a competitive debate forum in this finals of the TOC was a choice that links them to this. There's an intrinsic time trade-off between the hour and a half we spent in here and the hour and a half we could have spent outside independently schools debaters in a competitive competition of ethics where we use ethics where people see that CK McClatchy won the titles of the TOC by playing a video that they can use as part of the argument with schools debaters who are watching this as part of using the commodification acts. The third argument is that there's a trade-off because what they could have done is offered a tie where we have a productive discussion and we both win the TOC. However, we spend this hour and a half discussing how to actually change things. That means the role of the bout is not who did the better debating, but as the 1AC says, who actually creates the change isolating the video. The people gives the people exactly what they want. Otherwise, the debate space should not be a simulation for transportation planning, as explains in cross-ex, and that is exactly where processes become so disconnected from the fact that literally every second here could be spent elsewhere. The argument that people are watching is link turned by us because people are watching. You could have asked for a tie, you could have said let's have a productive discussion. That would generate much better community change instead of just another normal policy debate where you played a video which might have been a little bit interesting, however, still resulting in commodification of the other. Debate is the right form. We agree with you. The question is whether competitive debate is the right form, and you should have demanded the ballot or not. You say there's no impact to it. Our alternative is fundamentally to have that productive discussion, to instead go outside and do these things, which means it's mutually exclusive with the alternative, with mutually exclusive with the planet Wells. Now, the democracy card erase is exactly what we're criticizing because there is no democratic inclusion because those people in the video do not exist in this room, which is that they do not allow for any democracy, period. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So, if calling on the judge to vote affirmative is bad for our ethics, as you say,
sure.
What could the 1AC have done to be ethical?
Sure, I think I provided 3 examples. I'll give 2 that comes to my head. One is we could have all just said, finals of the TOC, this is pretty sick, like pretty cool.
Okay.
Let's all instead, everybody in here, go out and actually do the things we saw in the video.
Okay, so that's where I'm most confused,
sure.
So I'll start there.
Okay.
Our argument is that we need to bring people into the process of transportation
and
planning.
Our argument is that you did not bring those people into the transportation planning process.
I know. How does going out and protesting in the street bring them into the transportation
obviously,
planning
protest. Well, I mean, there are 2 arguments. One is that even if we did protest in the streets, that is exactly what the video demonstrated, is creating that coalition to do it. I believe the quote from the 1AC video was that it generated a community-wide consensus that included politicians, the community, as well as activists to bring together change. Now, the second argument is that, you're right, we probably, it's already 11:50, wow. We probably at 11:50 would not go into the dark streets of Kentucky and just, pick it right now. But our argument is just, what if we spent this hour and a half, talking about solutions to these problems, not only in the real world,
that's
but also...
what we're doing, right?
Not really. When we're trying to win a debate, it becomes distinct, it becomes disconnected.
So I guess, at what point did we force you to go for this Dark Knight, K, instead of like discussing whether transportation planning is effective?
I think that argument is why I'm going for the Dark Knight critique. Right,
Okay.
because this is,
So,
I would like that discussion.
In the
I want
context
this to be in the finals of the
In the
TOC.
context of the affirmative, what does the ballot mean?
What does the ballot mean in the context of the F? Well, I guess.
Oh, I meant in the context of the alt.
Oh, in the context of the alt. Well,
What does
the
the
alt.
ballot mean?
What does the alt mean, or what does
What's
the
the
ballot
ballot mean?
Well, the ballot should be not who does the better debating, but who can better produce that change. Whether that is the alternative and the things that I'm describing about how this debate should have gone down, and hopefully that can be replicated in the future when people understand this argument and see this argument
But
being
you
debated.
said that the debate space, because of its competitive nature, cannot be a space for change. How can the ballot be a
not at
call
all
for change?
So there's a disconnect between what you just said. It's not that the debate space cannot be, a call for change or a place of change. It's that the competitive debate space cannot be a place for change.
Why do you get the ballot?
Why do we get the ballot? Now that's a very complex argument that I would have to have spent 2 minutes answering the block, which is why I was kind of glad it wasn't a 2-week argument. But let me forward 2 arguments right now. One is that it's not that we should get the ballot; it's that you shouldn't get the ballot. In fact, if you want to call it a tie,
Unfortunately, that kind of.
No.
means that-
No, I'm serious.
I need another question.
If you want to call it a tie, I'm totally down with
I
it.
need another question. Who's the victim?
Who is the victim of what?
You read some cards that victimization is bad. When you say victimization, you must be referring to a victim.
Are
Who
we
is
referring
that
to the
victim?
1 NC card or the 2 NC pieces of evidence, which are talking
It's
about
the first 2 NC
traumatic
cards.
storytelling, and when we use videos like that as means to our ends.
So are the victims the people in the video?
That is one example of the victims. That is correct.
Sure.
We're locked.
Thanks.
It's the apartheid.
Which one?
Oh, apartheid.
That's a counterplan?
I said
Oh. I thought you said counterplan.
We'll see what happens after the one in our round. The apartheid.
I thought it was a tie. I'm ready to make
Yeah, I'm
history.
down.
I'm ready to make history.
It was on this one?
No, the
Yeah, 1-1-1.
I gotta pull it up. I'm gonna wait for Keenan to get it. You good?
1 second. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, great.
The lack of transportation inequality does not equate the situation to the atrocity of the apartheid. The apartheid was one of the most despicable atrocities in human history, where South African blacks were institutionally subjugated, beaten, killed, rounded up, and condemned to the living hell on earth. They don't meet the criteria for what constitutes the apartheid. That's our POP evidence. 2 impacts. The ace point is desensitization or amputation of the apartheid makes the atrocity at that time of humanist history commonplace and acceptable, was normalizes mass violence and turns the case blacks and apartheid in comparison to bad things in South Africa is overused by that reasoning by putting a lock on his door. The Korean and create his own apartheid. It turns the case. Their disrespect hollows out the entirety of the one of these ethics and epistemological foundations is hard and for the change. The charge of an apartheid is abolishing the whole apartheid movement to make the change of apartheid is affluence, wild, and accuracy, it's disrespect, the civilization, the suffering, the true. The victims of apartheid, the facts, and memorial to value the apartheid is full of regard. These levy this charge for half for human rights. The beast point is trivialization. The silences the voices, silences the voices of the oppressed and replicates that same inequality and exclusion that the one is criticized by shutting down the true oppression and blurring the distinction between the magnitudes of suffering. Their rhetorical blundering amounts to no more than anything the apartheid has ever occurred. Do not those who died suffer as unforgotten heroes, even if we're wrong about the Afro-negative symbols who render their suffering and their sacrifice mosaic and how the process to rob the masses of the rightful place in history has some of their sacrifice that they have made after this implication of the apartheid. The process now subjugated to trivialization of their suffering. This focus internally turns any decision-making arguments to focus on singular words. The crux of effective policy-making reads in 2005 in politics can be language right. You and argument before the beginning the most important. Re-express meaning of the words is hardly trivial. It's hardly trivial words to pull over the word of frame the issue that people find the word for the virtual version of their reaction. Even single words can matter. This is uniquely true for the word apartheid. SBT in 1988, the language has also power word shape. Perhaps in attitude, some words can think particular events like apartheid. You call this is an unprincipled dissertation. Now, the first argument they make is that our 1NC evidence defends gun violence. That is obviously not the case. The 1NC arguments are the 1NC evidence simply makes the claim that comparing gun violence to the apartheid is not a good idea. This does not mean that the gun violence is better or worse than the apartheid, but simply that they should not be compared because it means that we can start calling everything the apartheid, which leads to all the impacts that I just read above, as well as the impact evidence that I extended from the 1NC. The next argument they say is sorry, but you can obviously not do that. You should be held to your discourse as especially in the case of apartheid. You should prefer super specific evidence as opposed to the two-line sorry argument he makes in the 2AC. They also can't because they have already done it. It is what conditions citizens to accept brutally and tyranny in all forms, as Lewis. In for reality control involves being more of truth in this while suppressing lies and believing both limits to range of ideas and emotions that are always allowed to cause unnecessary confusion and conflict restraints. Which are understanding double thing means power holding to condition beliefs one by simultaneously accepting both of them by doing so. Non-conformist thoughts impossible where people cannot resist tyranny and will surrender liberty for security. Now next is this super long piece of evidence that he reads. Well, I think it makes a pretty good argument. I don't think it has much to do with this because it talks about a bunch of different things which are not the argument. Although Spurlock spends a long time, it's not responsive. It's a critique of not providing an alternative mechanism for responding to a criticism. However, discussion which what they call a pick rather than letting the institution in the back burner any further. These picks are good and necessary compassion. Only picks focus the most important issues rather than turning each into politics requires finding towards the construction bias. No spillover claim that arguments focus on specific topic areas. These arguments that anything is the apartheid that is not the apartheid is a bad idea because it spills over to all other uses of the word and means that the word is no par stressors or in the Brian 12 evidence.
Yeah, fair enough. Everybody.
That's right. You know, the one time we broke it out. Whatever.
Yeah, what did you read in SEMS?
It was TOC. It's like a tethered intercept radar system, which is basically borders.
I'm actually gonna run to the restroom.
Something you would consider.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's really hard.
Basically, that's my vote. That's racist, basically. Not really.
That was not
Mexican. Well, technically, we did link to immigration, so that. Yeah.
I heard that was part of the 2 years.
It was part of politics.
That's true. It's a big part.
Yeah, no. It's an intuitive argument, it also is responsive.
No, Colin Quinn gets the worst active for the TOC. He's 2 for 2 in the rounds and voted for it.
That is the limit.
That's my privilege. Been in 2 really close rounds. Well, I hate your choice. It's like, I voted half against Wars because Hedge is good. I'm a hack.
I think that makes sense. One debate, I was kind of comfortable with that one.
It means one team won. You know, I have he cuts all of the cards.
Okay, real quick before I start, realize there are 2 very important groups of people that I forgot to thank earlier. First, Glenbrook North. I every time I've debated you, it's been an awesome debate, and I've really enjoyed it. Second of all, my parents, who are probably not watching this debate round either, but I'd just like to say I really, really appreciate how much they've supported me through all 4 years and sending me to camp every summer. It's my appreciation is non-articulable. Okay, so the order is theory, the apartheid argument, and then the critique.
One second, sorry. Okay. theory will defend the performance and the application of the 1AC, so there's no risk of violence. Now, the apartheid argument. First, their arguments about materiality. First, missed our argument. You should focus on the materiality of the of the advocacy of including low-income people in transportation planning. First, the words don't come before actions in this space. So as long as we prove that we're a progressive movement towards including people, you should vote for the affirmative. Their pick also doesn't have an impact because that leads to material ends because they cover up the possibility of actual productive movements by focusing on the words they use. They change this argument into a floating picket block which justifies new permutations. First, permutation do both. It's able to solve their critique because their alternative is all about recognizing the violence of the apartheid. So we can incorporate that into the 1AC and be self-critical and able to solve. The next is perm do the cannibal. There's no
Their evidence is the memory of the apartheid is enough.
Yeah, their evidence is the memory of the apartheid is enough, so we're able to solve. Next, perm do the cannibal. There's no reason that we should be tied to all of the words in the 1AC. Our Wilson evidence, which is conceded on the ableism pick, means that we can continuously be self-reflective about using transportation planning. And next, they don't handle Brian evidence very well, which has two distinct arguments. First is the academic discourse disadvantage by focusing on journals and doesn't include the voices of the people of the 1AC because they cannot possibly write in the same journals that they do. Our evidence in our documentary is key to include people without a formal education because it's the best way to include them in things like transportation planning. Their critique and their apartheid case doesn't include them because not everyone can understand the intricacies of their argument. Second is our materiality first argument. If you believe that they have proposed something to make the world better, then you should vote F. Even if there are slight academic concerns about that, they've conceded that the academic space will always resist productive movements for really no good reason, which means that you should view the project and the movement of the 1AC as most important. Now in the critique. Our ballot is not to enforce CKM, it's to endorse our advocacy. We are role-playing as transportation planners in order to endorse inclusion in transportation planning. Their evidence about our evidence about planning is critical education and proves our framework argument because it's critical to actually change people's minds. And also the fact that GBN deleted all the analytics from their speech talk proves that they also have a ballot-centered mindset in this debate, and that their call for their alternative is not neutral. Also, if planners of the 1AC did not have not want personal gain. We bring the planners. We bring planners into the debate with 1AC, which is better and increases better world policy than the alternative. The F doesn't preclude the possibility of outside debate, which means that we're the best to solve their alternative. Also, protest is not able to solve transportation planning because it's only the simulation of the planning process and the inclusion of low-income and minority people into the transportation planning process that can actually lead to material change. Now they say that this commodification decide, but their Calvin Evans is talking about academic narratives that our evidence would independently critique. We critique academic discourse and say that you shouldn't focus on the questions presented by the critique, and you should instead frame your ballot in terms of creating material change. Next, they say they're conservative psychology argument, but it doesn't apply to us because there's a way to debate against the affirmative. If we present this affirmative to transportation planners, they would debate about the benefits of including the community in transportation policy and the benefits that their evidence doesn't apply because it doesn't assume that we are defending a role-playing argument within transportation planners. They say their other psychology argument, but you should extend our evidence about democratic exclusion. Debaters do not decide this round. It's communities and communities' voices decide what goes on this round. The F picks up the voices of the communities and the voices of what the community wants, and then brings them into this debate. We are not speaking for them. We're letting them speak for themselves. If we win a risk that we spill over either through the hundreds of people watching this debate or the people watching this debate round, then you should affirm because we give agency to people and we give people hope that they can actually have a voice within transportation planning. This is what the topic should have been focused about throughout the year, and this is why you should affirm 1AC because people look to the TOC finals and they see how we can actually effectively spill over to other policies. outside discussion isn't able to solve our arguments because our argument is about discussing our argument within the debate space, and it's about role playing as transportation planners.
I believe there are 2 minutes flat left. Exactly. Yeah.
I forgot it's been we can talk about
Red light, red light.
That's awesome. We're talking about red light. That's awesome. You're watching from home.
The crazy.
Batman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, can I grab one of the pens that was in your pocket?
Yeah.
Thanks. Second time.
Second time?
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Is everybody ready?
Hold on a second.
Yep. Take your time. Sorry about that.
Okay. And now I'm good.
All right.
Yeah, we're good. I'm good.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Great. Yes, this is TOC Finals, and yes, there are thousands of people watching, which is exactly our point. Our role of the ballot is who best produces that change and who can best fix the debate community to replicate and ensure that we can actually fix these problems that exist in these status quo instead of simulating and pretending that we are role-playing, pretending that we are policymakers, pretending that every single person in this room is not simply a debater who has the potential to produce that change, but rather is quote-unquote a transportation policymaker. What does that mean? What does that do to create the material change that they keep saying that the app might produce? What does that simulation do to quote-unquote include the voices of the oppressed? Our alternative is exactly that. Do not vote affirmative. Now, I'm going to change up things a little bit because I spent 2 minutes. Oh, I didn't start my timer. How much time is left?
I got you.
Take it.
4:23.
Take it. Thank you. I spent 2 minutes of my prep time not discussing about what strategy would be best or how to win this debate. Instead, I talked to Natalie about whether or not we should make this debate a tie. That is exactly what I'm going for, and that is what I'm changing this alternative to be. You can have the bigger trophy, FYI, but I'm going to endorse that this debate comes down to a tie. There are a couple that benefits to this argument. I'm sure John Spurlock will agree with me because if he tries to advocate that you should vote affirmative at the end of this debate when we are offering him not only the bigger trophy, but the chance to go down in debate history as someone who's actually trying to change these processes that we all can understand our problems with these status quo when debate becomes so disconnected to the structural violence of the status quo. When people read the ableism app but yet make jokes about ableist people, disabled people all the time, I'm thinking that is the problem with status quo debate, and that is what we are trying to change here. And I'm sure Spurlock will join hands and take my olive branch here and actually join here. Now, the first argument here is the commodification DA. Now, I'm not critiquing the 1AC anymore. I'm critiquing the status quo of debate, which is what Daniel and I talked about. The status quo debate modifies ethics when we trivially use people like when we simply do things like the ableism app or the biopolitics of disposability app that belongs alongside and act as it's not that the people want to commodify it, it's that the very nature of competitive debate, when we read these types of affirmatives, modify them, uses their traumatic storytelling as mechanisms to an ulterior means. The Kumar and the 1AC definitely demonstrates this, indicates that this instrumental rationality is exactly what replicates us and disconnects us from the violence that they are protecting in the video, because this means that we just use them as a means to an end. Now, the second argument is pseudo-progress. When we as debaters in this type of forum, in competitive forum, pretend that we actually change things when, quote-unquote, from the one era, we are the material change. Our simulation is an inclusion of the voices. Just because you did not speak for them and play a video and let them speak for themselves, that did not change anything, and the fundamental assumption that it has run its course. The debate has been in the veins of the entirety of debate, and that is the problem with status quo debate. This is not an offensive leak argument. This is an offensive reason why the status quo debate is bad, and you should change all of that with a tie. Now, the third argument is the ethics D, when we simply do these things as means to that end. What I just explained, it fundamentally violates the ethical nature of what debate could be. We could have and transform debate's potential by not doing this anymore and not using these people as a means to win the bout, instead having a productive discussion. Now, there are three alternative solvency arguments and ways that if you vote for a tie at this end of debate, we can change this course, and we can change the way debate is going down, and we can change some of these problems of the status quo in debate, and as well as that the problems I saw in the video. There are three arguments. First is this debate itself. We could have been going outside. We could have been writing up or thinking of a script that we could send to Obama himself to petition. We could have been outside actually picking him, probably because it's too late. We could have been having a discussion in here with all of the intelligent, bright minds and smart debaters. We could have been having a community-wide discussion, which is exactly what their blind piece of evidence is. I reread this card, and it's actually discussing exactly what I'm talking about with our critique of the status quo, which is exactly our point. Instead of actually changing anything, as Keenan says in the other flow, the academic discourses of debate and the way that competitive debate works down is we simply reject all those things for no reason, which is a quote from the 1AR. We agree with you. It does not create real change, and we need to get off our couch and actually change the community. Our alternative is a way to do this. It's the only way to produce the material change that the 1AR says is uniquely key. The democratic inclusion arguments is exactly our point. We are excluding people when we are having competitive debate space, and when we are simply competing for the ballot. That is our point, because we cannot have the discussion that could have otherwise taken place. You say we spill over. That is exactly our point. There are thousands potentially of people and other debaters, which are the brightest minds in the country, that we also agree on. It's the home that has provided CK McClatchy with the home, it's provided me with a home, it's provided Natalie with a home. That those are the people that are watching this debate. And if we can have the alternative of a tie, where you still get the bigger trophy. But think about the change we could create. Look at the Wikipedia page. Instead of first place CK McClatchy, second place Leonard Dorothy, or vice versa, we could instead have tie. Think about a way that we could change the debate place. Now, the last term is that we spill over. Then it's the TOC finals. That is exactly our point, and supercharges our ability to actually produce a real change. We've seen that because of the role about it. It's no longer a game. It's no longer a simulation of transportation policy making. This is about the actual problems that existed, about the video that is an actual problem that exists, which is no longer and should no longer be disconnected from our debate space. Was there anything else I should say? Now, I watched a British show where there was something very, very similar to this, and it was kind of a deal between everybody both gets $500,000, or one person can lie to the other person, take $1 million. Spurlock gets up, and the two iron is just like, we win this debate. I'll be a little bit disappointed because I think he's the exact right person to try and do this with. So. 106. There we go.
I know, you were like, I'm thinking of someone. Yeah, that's so true, nice.
We're not playing around. Everyone ready? combat that suffering in an out, then you vote is bankrupt. It is critical theory, throwing up our hands in the face of real problems by saying that we should not have that discussion here. We should, planning is closed off to experts and that we must open TI planning. We do not have access to transportation infrastructure planning, but we do have created social inequity. The alternative, which is what they propose, is refusing to endorse anything at all. In the face of a real problem with a real solution, throwing up your hands. And our argument is not that the ballot is a referendum on who wins the debate or who is the nicer person or who has a cooler tie. Our argument is that the ballot is a referendum on what strategy can most productively planning. And the transportation planners on this side of the room said, why don't we leave and just put up our signs? Our argument is that planning must be changed. If we win that simulations are productive because they create education and allow for more effective activism in the future, then we win the debate. If debaters are so smart and are going to become engaged with policy in the real world, then they should learn about policy that is really just a good idea, and then the other people try to always constantly counter it by bringing up hidden motives. And the real reason why you were doing this is to commodify the ballot. That means that we will never have productive change. It's an independent reason to vote affirmative because their politics by calling us commodifiers and calling us the real source of the problem means that we are never able to actually endorse the strategy of the affirmative. This means that you should vote affirmative, again, not for McClatchy, but for our advocacy statement. They've conceded our simulation arguments throughout the entire debate. Commodification. We do not link. We are not saying that you should vote affirmative because we introduce subjects of suffering. We are saying you should vote affirmative because we have a productive way to change the fact of what has happened. Also, we do not link to any of their arguments about dogmatism and creating the one meaning of the debate space and excluding them. They've conceded our Wilson evidence that indicates that transportation planning is closed off to experts in the status quo and it must be opened. They have no way to open the black box of transportation planning, which allows us to exclude people from decision-making processes. And this is really where the 2NR makes a mistake, is in not answering our democratic inclusion argument. They have conceded that it should not be the debaters who make the decision about what the topic should be or what the ballot should mean. It should be the communities. The affirmative does not mandate that you do anything in transportation planning. It mandates that you allow other people to do things in transportation planning. Glenbrook North's attempt to say what you should do forecloses our entire argument, which is that you shouldn't do anything because you're not part of their community and you don't know what they need. You should allow them to make the decision, which is exactly what the affirmative does. The competitive structure of debate is part of our argument because transportation planners would argue about this and refine the process through a competitive discussion to make the process better. That's our Wilson evidence about constantly critiquing planning, which is what you should have done. There's plenty of literature that disagrees with the AF. They are assuming that we just said social injustice is bad, vote AF, but our productive strategy can be criticized. There was a large body of literature that says bringing in communities would hurt transportation planning, and this constant refinement through a discussion creates a more effective planning, more effective advocates, and a better world in a material sense. If I can get some food, if they call for cards, you got them? Yeah, okay. Yep. Double check that you have everything. I think that's everything.
Oh, yeah, I'll look through it.
Is it okay if I just plug your... Of course. You can have to unplug it for a second.
That's no problem.
Now we get to relax. I don't even know how to relax anymore.
You should eat some real food soon.
Yeah. What's the plans? Why don't we go into a nice dinner?
Yeah, let's do that.
I don't know if you really know this, but it's after midnight.
All right. Well, let's go to a crappy diner.
Yeah.
And just eat a lot of food instead of a good food.
Yeah.
Hey, Jack.
Jack.
I'm gonna put that into the chat. Sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Let me. Okay.
So I'll put that together. The Kumar was a money situation.
Are you putting your 1AC together? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm trying to find my one. Kumar, sure.
No. Sawyer, did you have one AC most recently? I thought I handed it
handed it to us.
Let me start looking at it.
They have a digital copy.
So, looks like we may have lost the 1AC. I can send evidence.
That looks like GBN card.
Can you like maybe just email me the 1AC?
Sure.
Okay.
And he wanted.
Or flash the 1AC to us?
Is email cool, Brian?
That's fine.
What's your email?
bmanuel@stanford.edu.
Emanuel Stanford. No periods or anything?
Nope. MANUEL.
You want the whole 1AC too?
Yeah, you're gonna tell me which one it is.
Yeah.
You can also include like Wilson and Coughlin if you have those electronically. That'd be good.
Wilson and
Coughlin? Is that an author? Coughlin?
Oh, I put it in the jaywalking when I see the part.
Can you all put me
Yeah,
on
I have the print
Can
when
you
I
all
see
put me
here.
on that email too?
Oh, we found it on paper.
Oh. So.
Can you also just email me so it's easier?
It
So
might be
whoever
time to
has.
do it.
Okay, I'll email. However, the Wilson card was highlighted on paper, so you should
That's
probably
fine.
look at it on paper.
My email's ARJUN45.
Arjun45. Sweet. How do we connect to the internet? I'm on conference. Arjun45@gmail.com.
Yep.
Plus. Is it okay if I just email it out to everybody, I guess?
B-Manuel, B-M-A-N-U-E-L at Stanford.
Say that again?
B-M-A-N-U-E-L at Stanford.edu.
Okay. Do you want it?
He's Arjun45.